Stop throwing away your trash. Seriously. If you just finished a cup of Earl Grey or green tea and tossed that soggy bag into the kitchen bin, you didn't just throw away waste. You threw away one of the most potent biological reactors your garden has ever seen. Most people look at a used tea bag and see a wet mess. But I look at it and see a concentrated dose of tannic acid, nitrogen, and organic matter that's ready to ignite your soil's microbial life in a way that'll make your neighbors think you're using some high-end, illegal fertilizer. Now, I've spent the last 15 years knee-deep in soil science and sustainable horticulture. I've seen every garden hack in the book, from burying banana peels to spraying Epsom salts on everything. Most of it is fluff. But what happens to your soil chemistry when you introduce a used tea bag is fundamentally different, and it happens fast. We're talking about a 24-hour window where the biology of your garden bed shifts from surviving to thriving. I know what you're thinking. You've probably heard that tea is good for plants, but you've never been told why or how to do it without attracting pests or molding your mulch. You've likely felt the frustration of spending $40 on a bag of organic fertilizer, only to see your hydrangeas look just as tired 2 weeks later. It's exhausting, and frankly, it's a waste of your hard-earned money. The secret isn't in the fancy packaging. It's in the cellular structure of the tea leaves themselves. But it gets even more interesting. You see, most gardeners think they're feeding the plant. That's your first mistake. To get those magazine-ready blooms and heavy-hitting harvests, you stop feeding the plant and start feeding the soil's microbiome. When you bury a tea bag, specifically the right kind of bag, you aren't just adding compost. You're creating a localized nitrogen spike and a pH balancing event that triggers a feeding frenzy for beneficial bacteria. Here's the part no one tells you. If you do this wrong, you might actually be poisoning your soil with microplastics. That's right. A huge chunk of the tea bags sitting in your pantry right now are made with epichlorohydrin or polypropylene. If you bury those, you aren't helping your garden. You're literally planting plastic in your food supply. But don't worry, I'm going to show you exactly how to spot the garden gold bags and how to prep them so they start working the second they hit the dirt. I know this might sound like a lot of hype for a tiny bag of leaves, but stick with me. Once you see the root development we're talking about, you'll never look at your morning brew the same way again. If you're tired of the big box garden advice that treats your backyard like a chemistry lab instead of a living ecosystem, hit that subscribe button. We're about to go deep into the science of what's actually happening beneath your feet. Because what happens in the next 24 hours isn't just growth. It's a total soil revolution. Now, you might be asking, Porter, can I just dump the tea leaves on top of the soil? Well, you could. But you'd be missing out on 80% of the benefits. To understand why your garden goes into overdrive in just 24 hours, we have to look at the hidden chemistry inside that little mesh square. Most people think tea is just dried leaves. But to a soil microbe, a used tea bag is a high-energy power bar. When that bag hits the moist earth, it releases a concentrated dose of tannic acid. Now, here's the secret. Tannic acid slightly lowers the pH of the soil immediately surrounding the bag. For most of our favorite garden staples, think roses, ferns, and especially blueberries, that tiny acid hit makes locked-away nutrients like iron and magnesium suddenly bioavailable. It's like unlocking a vault of food that was already there, but the plants just couldn't reach it. But it gets even better. The nitrogen levels in used tea leaves are roughly 4%. That might not sound like much compared to a bag of synthetic October 10th tin fertilizer, but because it's organic matter, it doesn't wash away in the first rain. It sticks. Within the first 12 hours, The moisture in your soil begins to rehydrate the tea particles. This triggers a microbial bloom. Beneficial fungi, specifically mycorrhizae, are drawn to the tannins like a magnet. They start weaving their filaments around the tea bag, creating a superhighway for nutrients to travel directly into your plant's root system. By the 24-hour mark, the oxygen levels in the soil around the bag actually shift as aerobic bacteria begin breaking down the cellulose. This process generates a tiny, almost imperceptible amount of heat, just enough to stimulate root hair elongation. You're literally giving your plants a warm, nutrient-dense breakfast in bed. Now, I promised you the 3-step burying method because, let's be honest, just tossing a bag on the surface is a recipe for mold and curious raccoons. First, you have to perform the paper test. Take your tea bag and try to tear the edge. If it rips easily like a wet napkin, it's compostable paper. If it feels slippery or has a silky sheen, it's likely plastic-based. If it's plastic, you must, and I mean must, cut that bag open and only bury the leaves. We are growing tomatoes here, not a landfill. Second, don't just dig a hole. You want to trench and tuck. Find the drip line of your plant. That's the circle on the ground directly under the outermost leaves. This is where the feeder roots live. Dig a small 4-inch divot. Drop the bag, or the loose leaves, in. And here is the pro tip. Pour the last half-inch of cold tea from your cup right on top of it. This acts as a starter fluid to kickstart the decomposition process before you even cover it back up. Third, and this is the one most people miss, you have to seal the deal. Cover the bag with soil, but then top it with a handful of mulch or even just a flat stone. This prevents the nitrogen from off-gassing into the air and forces all that goodness to stay exactly where the roots can grab it. I've seen struggling, yellowing gardenias turn a deep, waxy green in 48 hours just by using this targeted, trenching technique. It's not magic. It's just giving the soil exactly what it's craving. But here's where things get a little controversial. There are certain plants in your garden that will absolutely hate you if you give them tea. If you put these bags near your succulents or your Mediterranean herbs like rosemary or lavender, you're going to have a very bad week. Why? Because the very thing that makes tea great, the moisture retention and acidity, is a death sentence for plants that love lean, alkaline soil. So, before you go burying your entire morning's brew, you need to know which plants are tea addicts and which ones are teetotalers. Now, before you go emptying your entire tea drawer into the flower beds, we need to talk about the teetotalers. I've seen well-meaning gardeners accidentally melt their prize-winning lavender plants because they thought organic always meant safe. If a plant thrives in the desert or the rocky cliffs of the Mediterranean, think rosemary, sage, thyme, or those trendy echeveria succulents. Keep the tea far away. These guys love alkaline, fast-draining soil. Introducing acidic, moisture-wicking tea leaves is like forcing a desert cactus to live in a swamp. It'll cause root rot faster than you can say Darjeeling. But for your tea addicts, your azaleas, camellias, hydrangeas, and even your vegetable heavy hitters like tomatoes and peppers, you can actually scale this up. This brings us to the golden ratio. A lot of folks ask me, Porter, can I overdo it? The answer is a resounding yes. You don't want your garden to become a giant vat of kombucha. The rule of thumb I've used for over a decade is the 2-2-1 rule. For every 2 square feet of soil, you can safely bury 2 tea bags once a month. This provides a steady drip feed of nutrients without spiking the soil acidity to dangerous levels. If you have a massive compost pile, that's your safety valve. You can toss an unlimited amount of paper-based bags in there, let them break down, and then spread that black gold across your entire landscape. But let's get back to that 24-hour miracle. If you followed the trench and tuck method I gave you earlier, by the second morning, something incredible is happening. The earthworms have likely already sniffed out the tea. Worms love the grit of tea leaves. It actually helps their digestion. As they move toward the bags, they aerate your soil for free, leaving behind castings, which are arguably the best fertilizer on the planet. You've essentially hired a free construction crew to renovate your garden's infrastructure overnight. I know some of the traditional garden experts might roll their eyes at this. They'll tell you to just buy a bag of October 10th tin and be done with it. But those are the same people who wonder why their soil feels like concrete after 3 seasons. We're playing the long game here. We're building a legacy of healthy, living earth that gets better every single year. So, here is your Smart Senior Challenge for this week. Don't take my word for it. Pick one struggling plant in your yard. Just one. Give it the 24-hour tea treatment we talked about. Check the leaf tension and the color depth the next morning. Once you see that waking up effect with your own eyes, you'll never be able to throw a tea bag in the trash again without feeling a little guilty. If this deep dive helped you see your trash in a new light, do me a favor. Share this video with that one friend who's always complaining about their yellowing roses. Let's save their garden and their wallet together. I'm Porter, and this has been Smart Senior Secrets. Now, get out there, finish your tea, and go feed your dirt. Your plants are waiting.